What's up, y'all? We in the building. All right, so I had a whole like intro thing that like deleted or something. It made me mad, so I was like, forget it. I was supposed to do this morning, but as you can hear, I still have a cold, so bear with me. This is my intro to scientific racism. And I want to do this because it's like becoming a big thing again without people realizing that they are practicing or pushing scientific racism. Um, not only do I hear it a lot with the like abo arguments, the Native American arguments, but even with the supremacists, white supremacists and black supremacists arguments as well. So I kind of just want to talk a little bit about just the history of scientific racism. So right now it's a rabbit hole too, like it's a lot to cover. So I realized that the people who I'm trying to talk to, like the attention span is kind of low, so I'm trying to keep the videos from being like 5 hours long. So right now today I'm just basically introducing to you like some of the key players, some of the like I'm gonna do like a little link kind of so you can see how like one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And you have like this deep hole of scientific mishaps to like basically go back and undo. And I think a lot of people now are not aware of the undoing of a lot of these things. And so that's why we get so many people pushing for like I don't know, they like push the racist narrative. Okay, so right here we have like different theories on the races of the origins of people, right? So one is that the Negro race is related to apes, right? Another one is that black skin is a result of a disease called Negroidism, and blacks have white skin underneath. Benjamin Rush. Negro pigmentation is a huge freckle that covers the entire body as a result of an oversupply of bile caused by a tropical climate. Whites and Negroes are different species, and each species is divinely created for its own geographical location. White race is superior because the cold climate made them become more intelligent to survive. So those are all actual, like really proposed theories, actual theories proposed by people to explain the origins of different people around the world. Um, so we're going to talk about Polygenism. I think it's right. Polygenism. Right. So scientific racism. What is that? Scientific racism, sometimes it's called biological racism, and it's a pseudoscientific belief that the human species can be divided into biologically distinct taxa called races. And taxa, as you know, taxonomy is how we group organisms, how we group different animals, different species. So in this, our taxas are called races, and that empirical evidence exists to support or justify racism, racial inferiority, or racial superiority. Okay, so we do understand today that racism is like not racism, but that races are social. Like that's a social thing, the social construct. We have that understood. But in these times, your race was considered not social, but actually um, like a like you were, it was a species. So each race was a different species, and it wasn't just a different color or from a different area. It was literally a different type of animal. Um, right. So polygenism, right? Polygenism is what most people nowadays are trying to push who don't like the out of Africa theory. Okay, it is the doctrine or belief that existing human races have evolved from two or more distinct ancestral types. So what this is not monogenism, which is basically like the Bible saying everybody came from Adam and Eve, coming from one source. The out of Africa theory, where people basically all we all came from one, well, not one, but many ancestral ancient humans, and basically we all derive from that in many different ways, from migration, all kinds of things that made us spread out into different people, but we basically all come from the same thing. Polygenism is saying no, these people came from this, these people came from this, these people came from this, we have different origins. Okay. So that this is what people are pushing. I don't know if they know what the name of it is, but that's the name of it. um so when did the separation of humans become popular? Right? So, because the Bible has been around a long time and everybody was on the Adam and Eve tip. Now all of a sudden everybody coming from different origins, right? So from the mid 1600s to the late 1700s, 17th, 18th century, if you understand what that is, there was many talk about the origins of humans and the races of humans. And that is because at this time travel became abundant. So people started realizing that there were stark differences in culture and the look of people all over the globe. So, where we would call it culture today, in those times, they would just consider people weird, barbaric, and primitive because they were doing something outside of the culture of the upper class Europeans. Um, of course, that is ignorant by today's standard for sure. It's not a crime, though. You know what I'm saying? But misinformation in the wrong hands becomes very dangerous, as we will see. So in the early 1600s, um, when they were like doing the travel, they weren't necessarily doing it with malicious intent to say, oh, these people must come from something different, or, negatively. It's just like they're so different that they have to come from something. Like, how did they get like this? So what I'm saying, where there's no way like we could ever look like this. Like, where are these people from? So they have to be from something different. Um, so, but is polygenism racist in itself? So polygenism is not inherently racist. Many of the people who presented theories of polygenesis did not bring them forward with a hierarchy in mind. So, like Francois Bernier and Richard Bradley are two people who brought forth um, theories of polygenesis, and they didn't really present it where one race or species of people was better than another. But they did have it like, well, we just originate from different places. There are different diets and different climates, so therefore we're different people. Not necessarily saying that one was better than the other, just that one is different than the other. And they based all of this on them um traveling and seeing the different appearances of different people. Um, so why is it the catalyst of racism then, since it isn't inherently racist? Well, Pelagianism was proposed to explain why people in different areas were different. And it was believed that perhaps they came from a different beginning, and that's why they look and act different. But later, this was used to justify the transatlantic slave trade, stating that Africans were subhuman or not human at all, and therefore, it was okay to treat them like animals and enslave them, believing that everyone who wasn't European or of a different species that had their own separate origins helped bypass the societal morale of how to treat human beings. And so, like as you see over here, we'll get into this later, but it's like, the skulls and how they try to compare like the skulls to monkeys, to animals closely related to different things, saying that this skull is of this species, this skull is of this species, this skull of course is of this species, right? And one theory was that like apes or monkeys were of course related to humans, but that it was different species along the way. So it was like there's a monkey, and then there's Negroes, and then Negroes are in between monkeys and humans. Not at all monkey, but not all the way, human. That was one of the things proposed. All right, so I'm gonna get into some of the people who I think are like some key beginning players that people should know when doing this, so that when we refer back to them, you kind of understand why they were important. So Carl Linnaeus, he was a botanist, biologist, and a physician in the late 18th century. Okay, he used to name plants and stuff. It's called binomial nomenclature. I messed that up. No, totally. I'm so sorry, but that was irrelevant, so I didn't put it on here. But um, he created the precursor to our taxonomy, right? So as you know, with taxonomy, you have the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family. Most people just usually focus on the genus, species, and subspecies. We don't go as high as that, but when you say the animal kingdom, you say everything else. That's what you're referring to, because he had, you were part of the plants. You either were part of plants, you were part of animal kingdom. You know what I'm saying? Or it's a third one. It's three of them. Okay. So he put these things in an order of, um, like how you classify stuff. And he based it basically on mainly on observations of, what they do. So we have mammals, warm blooded, we give live birth to our babies. We feed them from ourselves, milk and stuff like that. So that is how you like we're mammals, but so are bats, even though they fly, and so are whales. It's stuff like that. It's based on what things are alike um, within the organisms. Okay, so that you can place them in a line, and it will show going back like what they have in common, what are they closely related to, things like that. Genetic testing and DNA now have perfected this system. So although it's kind of the same, as they are some differences today than it was then, because we have better tools now. We know how to do things a little bit better now. So we still use observation, but also we use genetic testing and things to see more, honed down the similarities between organisms. So Carl Linnaeus also brought five types of human beings. The Americanus: red, choleric, upright, black, straight, thick hair, nostrils flared, face freckled, a beardless chin, stubborn, zealous, free, and painting themselves with red lines, governed by habit. Clearly, he was talking about the Native Americans. The Europeanists are white, sanguine, muscular, with yellowish long hair, blue eyes, gentle, acute, inventive, covered with close vestments, governed by customs. The Asiaticus, yellow, melancholic, stiff, black hair, dark eyes, austere, haughty, greedy, covered with loose clothes, governed by beliefs. The Afro Africanus, black, phlegmatic, relaxed, black, frizzled hair, silky skin, flat nose, timid lips, females with elongated labia, mammary glands give milk abundantly, sly, lazy, negligent, anoints themselves with grease, and governed by caprice. That's only four. The fifth one he had was like for monsters, like mythological beings, basically. And like freaks of nature, which back then they were freaks of nature. They didn't really count for like diseases and different genetic issues that people had. So I put these on here because when you read these, this literally today is still standing. It still stands. When people think about these these four types of people, this is what they think of. You know what I'm saying? A white person, blonde hair, blue eyes, um, you know what I'm saying? An Asian person, dark hair, dark eyes, loose clothes, this yellow, all of this red for Native Americans, painting themselves a red line, um, free, like the way, because you look at them dancing and stuff like that. For African, definitely everything on here, even from the anoints themselves with grease, sly, lazy, negligent. Because all of this stuff that he had attached to people, people still push these narratives today. This is pseudo. This is not like this is pseudo. Yes, it may be what he feels like he observed, but this is not standing. This is not real. This is highly, highly pseudo. However, this narrative has been pushed for so long that even today in 2023, these things, if you can put it up today, most people will be like, yep, yep, yeah, this is right. This is not. It is not. Okay. But I put it up there because this is the 1800s here. And here we are in 2023 having to still fight this. Okay. Now let's move on to Samuel George Morton. I'm going to do a whole show on him, but I'm introducing him now just to show this rabbit hole. So, Samuel Morton was born in Philadelphia in 1799. He's a physician, natural scientist, and he created craniology, which is now called phrenology. Now, although a skull can tell you a lot of things, one thing we know it cannot tell you is the intelligence or psychology of the person. However, Samuel Morton felt like from measuring the skull, he could tell the intelligence of a race. He made a claim that not only did each race have a different origin, it can be determined that Caucasians were the most intelligent, followed by Native Americans, Malays, and the Negroes. Morton maintained that from their origin, Negroes have always been the lowest of all human species. It is this man right here, okay, that a lot of people today still feel like, yes, they're just the lowest of everything. Oh my God, we don't want to be a Negro. We don't want to be from Africa. Realize that you are following this man's thoughts. So Ephraim George Squire was an American archaeologist. And he is just well known for his research on the prehistoric mound builders of America. His work was profound in establishing archaeology as a scientific discipline, period. Because during his time it was new. So they're making strides with him and the teams of people who he worked with and working in not only this, they didn't only work on the mounds in America, like also in Egypt, but their work itself helped establish archaeology as a scientific discipline. And his research also helped reconstruct some of the mounds that were in North America. Okay, so Ephraim sent a drawing of a skull he found in a mound to Samuel Morton, right? The guy we just talked about, who looked at their skull. Well, he looked at the skull from the drawing and concluded that they were similar to Central and South Americans, right? So the skulls that he sent them was from like Ohio. And Samuel Morton concluded that they were similar to the Central and South American skulls. So he concluded that they did not migrate from Asia and they were from America alone, and they have looked the same since their origin. Their descendants look just like they do. Okay. Of course, a lot of scholars disagree with him on this And of course, the Native Americans agreed with him on this because their their stance was that they have been here. They did not migrate from Asia. So William Pigeon was an archaeologist who disagreed with Samuel Morton. So he wrote a book named Traditions of D. Kuda and Antiquarian Researches. And I put the book in here because I figured somebody had to have um taken something out of this book. Because in this book he talked about the mounds throughout North America. He wrote about finding writings in the mounds, about a race that predated Native Americans. This was widely accepted. The drawings and everything, like he had gotten a lot of money from this. Um, he became rich from these quote unquote findings. That is until a man named Theodore Lewis falsified his claims. And he revealed that William Pigeon had fabricated his research, drawn mounds where there weren't any mounds, made up the paintings. He made up everything to discount the Native American ancestors who created all the discoveries at these mounds. So Abos, I know like you guys want to, use these mounds and you want to think that they're, you know, pyramids and that they come from some aboriginal place. That is made up. It's made up. William Pigeon, he's the one that did it. Y'all go back and y'all let everybody know. Don't follow this man or his book, even though it had been accepted in society. It is not true. And it can be, it's not just said not to be true. You can literally look in there and look at these where these mounds are supposed to be and go there and there are no mounds. There were never no mounds. He made this up because he just couldn't give the Native Americans the credit of their ancestors. So, does that mean Samuel Morton was right though? Well, not really. Um, Samuel Morton was set on proving that races have been the same since their origin because he was a um because he believed that polygenism. So because he believed in polygenism, he wanted to show in his research that races have been the beginning since they've been the same since the beginning of time, meaning that all of them had to have a different origin. So because he was set on proving that, um, he didn't want to believe in evolution. Diet didn't make a change. That he didn't want to believe that the climate could change you. Like no, races are going to be that no matter where they are, no matter what, they're going to look the way they look. They're going to be the way that they are. Um, so he was also accused of tweaking skull measurements to fit his narratives about race and intelligence, and that he made plenty analytical errors. Um, while doing this to just try to basically have confirmation bias to fit his narrative. He obtained over 1,000 skulls in his lifetime. They're donated after his death to the Penn Museum in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They subsequently determined that he also obtained some of these skulls immorally because they were like, some of them were slaves. They did practice on us black people a lot. And so Penn the Penn Museum gave 13 of the black skulls a proper burial. Today, phrenology, which is the cranial study, is considered pseudoscience. So, although skulls from different backgrounds can be helped with forensic drawings, and there are differences, those differences cannot be attributed to intelligence or character of the specimen. So, yes, they do still um, measure the skulls and things like that. Like when they find a skull out in the desert or find a skull of a body. And yes, if they are African American or if they have Asian descent or if they're European, it's markers on there that are going to be different based on our phenotypes. But what Samuel Morton was trying to do, which is show the intelligence of a person based on their skull, that is pseudo. You cannot do that based on a skull. So this was my introduction to the topic of scientific racism. So you see how when you start this, it becomes a rabbit hole because you go from one and then somebody, um, take that pseudoscience and adds on to it and adds on to it and adds on to it, and you get like a kind of a mess. So from continent to so throughout time, from continent to continent, they all try to satisfy your theory that we cannot all be from the same place. And although this can raise someone's attention to say, hey, clearly all science should just be accepted because it is wrong or used to push a political agenda as they do with scientific racism. Yes, that's facts. However, that is why we follow the data, the evidence, and primaries throughout history to the present, so that a whole picture can be presented and further misleading can be prevented. So coming up, I'm going to talk about eugenics, more about phrenology, and more about how scientific racism is affecting us then and now. That's all. So stay tuned. It's me, Honey Clark, signing off.
We in the building?
Night train
We
on
in
the
the
track.
building?
It's the bar.
The bar?
Yep, and I reloaded my clip.